Metal Gear Survive is a different animal. Some in the press have, for whatever reason, enjoyed it, but most in the press and also not in the press have not enjoyed it. In a lot of ways, it's kind of a reminder of what's wrong with everything. And it's certainly getting a focused barrage of hatred. But why? Hi folks, it's Falcon. And today on gameranx we ask the question, why is Metal Gear Survive getting so much hate? So let's start with perhaps the most obvious and glaring problem. One of the most amazing minds in gaming is the person who created and piloted the Metal Gear franchise for decades. Over the course of the development of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, Konami kind of internally decided to change direction. Now, not a lot of people saw this coming, as the lead up to this involved a lot of announcements and an elaborate ruse from Kojima himself regarding Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, where he made an earnest effort to fake people out as to what the game actually even was. He did the same thing with Silent Hills, which was going to be the next entry into that franchise, creating a playable teaser and not telling anybody what it was. People got to the end of it and found that it was a teaser for Silent Hills and went batshit insane. Obviously, this was a very cool development, and it really seemed like Konami was on its way to having a great couple of years as a AAA developer, making games that have beginnings, middles, and endings at a $60 price point and not endless grinding slogs. And then things started to happen. Kojima announced that he thought The Phantom Pain was the last Metal Gear, whether or not Konami continued with the franchise, and that he had closed the loop. This isn't the first time he said anything like this, however, it is the first time it coincided with a corporate restructuring announcement. Over the next month, on all of the materials for Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain, they removed Kojima's name, so it no longer said a Hideo Kojima game, and it was no longer developed by Kojima Productions. They renamed the internal studio known as Kojima Productions to Los Angeles Studio, and took down all the PT/Silent Hills stuff from all of the various websites that Konami owned. Basically, everybody involved with Silent Hills also lamented the end of the project, from Guillermo del Toro to actor Norman Reedus, who were both collaborating on the project. None of them were happy, and none of them were likely under the same legal requirements not to talk that Kojima was. So people kind of pieced together the general mood from them that none of this was amicable, and although it all took place privately, was probably just really awful. And I think that's really in everyone's minds as they see Metal Gear Solid, a sort of bizarre story set somewhere between military fiction, historical fiction, and science fiction, as a zombie survival game. In fact, when the game was announced, that was the main reason everybody was angry about it. It's certainly not anymore, but it's a valid reason. Most people in gaming like Hideo Kojima. Whether they like his games or not is almost irrelevant. Most people like him. And by no means is he a perfect human being, none of us are. He's a rather brilliant creator. That there was very likely a behind-the-scenes war that took place between an individual and a massive company, an individual that most of us really like, and the individual lost. If I'm wording it bluntly, it just feels gross. Now, it's not just that. Konami had done a lot of stuff that was very anti-consumer. For instance, they basically forced microtransactions into the Phantom Pain, and no one was happy about that, including the man himself. And it had been obvious that at some point they were going to move to the more mobile, endless profit, microtransaction-oriented type business model at some point in the future. Just when was kind of what we were all fearing. And while the worst case scenario would have been cancellation of Metal Gear Solid 5, this wasn't the best case scenario by any means. By a lot of accounts, The Phantom Pain is not a complete game. There are things that were left out of it due to time and budget constraints, and that's just voluntary on Konami's part. Konami is not an unhealthy company financially speaking. Certainly their investment on The Phantom Pain was pretty damn big, and it is a polished masterpiece of a game, but knowing that there was a lot of turmoil just in the development of that was surrounded by turmoil about the business model and what was profitable and what was necessary and what they should be moving towards and what they shouldn't, and that narrative games that people enjoy were basically put on the chopping block for more mobile-oriented, microtransaction action-oriented type games, well, Kojima could still be working there, and I think people would probably still not like Konami. I mean, there's not a hashtag fuck Konami for no reason. But we haven't even actually talked about Metal Gear Survive. This has just been people's opinion on Konami, which makes up the environment that Metal Gear Survive was birthed into. And it wasn't a pretty one, but Metal Gear Survive is kind of an ugly baby, too, if we're going to continue with the birth thing. If you watched my esteemed colleague Jake Baldino's Before You Buy on Metal Gear Survive, he wasn't kind to it, and yet I feel like he was maybe a little too kind to it. He was actually pretty harsh about this game. He was real about the fact that it did do some things well, and I'm not going to say that it didn't. But as a package, it's a fucking disaster. The beta had given us hope in that it gave us a short period of time in a fairly hardcore survival game that was difficult without co-op, but as it turns out, it's just because it's an unfair piece of shit game that doesn't really give you a lot of opportunities to play it in an even vaguely enjoyable manner. When you boot up Metal Gear Solid, there's supposed to be something special about it. There's a reason why you're playing a Metal Gear Solid game. It's quirky, it's strange, but yet it somehow manages to slot itself into a version of our real world. Metal Gear is all about atmosphere, environment, not just in the story and the aesthetics, but in the mechanics of the game itself. If you play Metal Gear as a stealth game, and in my opinion that is the best way to do it, the environment is the most important part of it. And while some people have said that the environment of Metal Gear Survive is at least ethereal and interesting in some way, I don't love it when they take assets from another game and just use them like it's something new, because it's not. And that says nothing of the fact that they just took Afghanistan, plopped some crap on it and called it a wasteland, or how very weird and crappy that kind of is. Let's just go ahead and say the really big problem of Metal Gear Survive is the one that everyone was worried would be the big problem. It's just a cash-in. It's literally just being like, hey, Metal Gear is popular. What's popular with the kids right now? The survival games? Yes, let's make a survival game with zombies, and that will be popular because it is a popular genre, which they're about a decade too late with, and considering Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is like 3 years old now, it's really weird that sometime between then and now they said to themselves, yes, zombie survival is hot right now. Surprised it wasn't Metal Gear Battle Royale. Or maybe they haven't had enough time to do that. Maybe that's the next thing. The mother base destruction transports some various soldiers to. Oh my god, I hate the setup for this game so much. It's just so cynical, and it drips of that cynicism. It's not something that hides its cynicism well. Charge people $10 for save slots, and pretend that the game was made in the love of gaming in some way. Although I don't know that they're even doing that. Obviously, the team that made Metal Gear Survive doesn't even love Metal Gear Survive or Konami, as they embedded a secret message on a clipboard with different mercenaries' names. If you take the first letter from the last names of a certain number of them in sequence, it spells out KJP forever. When you have staff doing ballsy crap like that to basically honor the person forced from the company in the cynical cash grab of a game that you were basically forced to work on to pay your rent. But if we want to desensationalize the whole thing, Metal Gear Survive is dull. It is a dull game. If it didn't have the Metal Gear name attached to it, we wouldn't be talking about it at all. And that should say everything that you need to know. All of this context and all of the reverence that the series itself has attracted over the years. And Konami thinks that the people who give them money to make games are so stupid, they can literally just squeeze out any hot turd, slap the Metal Gear name on it, put it on store shelves, shimmering and steaming, and the people who make their jobs even possible will simply devour this delicious turd. For it is the brand that they crave. Not the narrative, not the characters, not the style of writing, not the aesthetic, not the development of genre, not the proper contextualization of the gameplay mechanics that make them feel as though they actually are somewhat necessary. Now all you have to do is just lure zombies toward doors because they don't know how to walk through them. And they know what they're dealing with because they didn't price this at $60, but at $40 with microtransactions, they hope you'll spend more than $60 on it, but I hope you won't. When I sat down to make this video, I was concerned about how it could be fair. The thing is, nothing Konami has done is fair. They haven't treated the creator of the franchise fair. They haven't treated a franchise that has single-handedly delivered them accolade after accolade fair. And more importantly, they haven't treated their customers fair. It's pretty clear the lack of respect that they have for anybody who is a Metal Gear fan in the creation of this game. And that's why people are angry about it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that's why people hate it? At very least, leave us a comment, and if you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed now, would be a great time to do so. We are building a GameRanx army. That is the quickest way in. And we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero. And we'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.